All right, I am back, and I'm in glorious 720p, or it wouldn't be me. And if I was wearing my white car, I could get just about twice as far. That don't make a lick of sense, but it rhymes, and as far as I know, that's still not a crime. Don't give them any ideas, though. What are we going to talk about right now? I'm going to try to talk about a couple of things very briefly, because I have recorded many videos and just filled up USB drives with multiple gigabyte videos of me saying stuff that I wanted to publish online that I have thus far not yet published online. So I'm going to try to keep this relatively short and sweet. And look at that classic SUV over there. Somebody's got class. Anyway, getting back to the story. What was I talking about? I got distracted. Squirrel! You know the dog from the movie Up? I would say squirrel, and he could fly an airplane. I just did that. But a lot less funny. What was I talking about? I'm going to try to keep things relatively short and sweet. And I'm going to talk about stuff. So, I've recorded several videos now about the current internet sensation, which is this bricks and minifigs story online, which honestly at first I didn't care much about, with all the crazy stuff we've got going on nowadays, like literal James Bond villain type people running our society, and really creepy evil corporations, a war in Iran, all kinds of messed up stuff going. The economy, which is great if you're a billionaire and really horrible if you're one of us plebs. And I don't know, what am I trying to say? What I'm trying to say is that when this story about a Lego scandal started showing up in my feed, I was like, who cares about a Lego scandal? There's way worse things going on, like the price of gas. But anyway, one of these videos, and I've already said this probably about 20,000 times now, Asmongold reacting to Reckless Ben's Bricks and Minifigs expose just auto-played on my computer one day, and I just let it play. And I was blown away by how, brazenly evil and corrupt this company is. I mean, it reminded me of another company that I won't name, because I don't want them doing the same thing to me that Emin McNuff is trying to do to Reckless Ben, because this Ben here is just slightly less reckless and wants to have a life. Although I greatly appreciate what Reckless Ben has done, and I hope he's successful. But what I want to try and point out, one of the things that I want to say, I have a lot of things I want to say, but I'm going to try to just say one thing for this video. Reckless Ben, one of his stunts, and I'm not going to criticize anything he did, because even if it was unconventional or unorthodox or whatever you want to call it, it worked. I mean, he won the information war. And at least in my opinion, please don't sue me, I don't think he broke any laws. Let me see here. So what did he do? One of his stunts is that he got someone to somehow trick this woman who was a manager of this bricks and minifig store into signing a contract, and I think she was thinking she was signing for a package or something. And this contract included clauses that forbade her from calling the cops on him or trespassing him from the store, and included stipulations that if she did, she had to pay him a bunch of money. I don't remember how much, but I think that's hilarious. And the thing is, you can say, well, that's absurd. You can say that's illegal. Maybe it is. I don't know. I'm not a lawyer. Although this stuff is kind of fascinating and it makes me want to learn about it. But here's what we're getting to. So this was a long introduction, 4 minutes and 55-second introduction to what what I was going to say. I think that here in America, well, I don't think it should be a common knowledge, well-established fact. There are, but it is definitely my opinion, there are a lot of really egregious and abusive contracts that people are just forced into or tricked into. And I think that Reckless Ben maybe unintentionally pointed out with his little stunt there, how someone can easily be duped into signing a contract, and now it's legally enforceable. If Reckless Ben wants to, he can sue that woman or that franchise, and maybe he will, I don't know. And you know what? I hope he does. Because she signed a contract that said that she would not call the cops on him and not trespass him from the store. And if she does, she owes him thousands of dollars or something. I don't remember exactly how much. But whatever the amount is that's not really relevant. The point is, like when you apply for a job and they hire you, and you have to sign just reams and stacks of papers, and including your employee handbook, they just hand you a piece of paper that says that you have read and agreed to the terms of the employee handbook. And the employee handbook is a freaking encyclopedia. And inside that encyclopedia are things that non-disparagement clauses, things like you can't mention them on your social media. Sometimes they grant themselves the right to spy on your social media or, read your email or otherwise digitally stalk you, which that's just really egregious and abusive. But companies do that stuff. And they hide the really objectionable clauses in long, absurdly long contracts because they know you're not going to scroll through all 394 pages of an absurdly long contract and read every one of those pages. Those contracts, and I think that contract law, the concept of contract law, needs to be legally challenged. We need a sovereign king. That's my political solution, to step in and say any contract that contains abusive or egregious clauses that are not made, that are not disclosed explicitly, is automatically legally voided. You don't even have to go to court and challenge it, or say, well, I didn't know, or I had to sign it to get this job, or to use this email service, or to, whatever it was, use this phone that I bought, use this online banking function, whatever it is, I don't care. All of these things have really egregious and abusive contract clauses. And, you can either not use that program or that product you bought, or get that job, or whatever it is, or you can agree to this absurdly long contract full of abusive things. Oh, and another thing, you waive your right to a trial by jury, and things like that. So like if you have a grievance against them and you want to take them to court, can't do that. You have to let them go to arbitration, where someone they hire to rule in their favor. I'm not a 100% against arbitration kind of person. If people want to settle things outside of court, that's cool, but when you force people to give up their rights in order to have a job, or to rent an apartment, or to use a cell phone, or to use software they already bought, that's just wrong. So this is my rant. I'm ranting, and you're watching Random Rants, and that was randomly timed. But getting back to the story, I think we need some really serious reform in contract law, because the way it is right now, really lends itself to being abused by hostile, malicious parties. And I don't know, the law needs to assume that when an entity creates a 300-page contract and expects you to click I agree or sign it, or when some corporation is hiring you and they hand you reams of paper like this, and a separate paper that says that you have read and agreed to the conditions in that employee handbook that is like an encyclopedia that grants them the right to digitally stalk you and all kinds of really egregious stuff. And I mean, if you've worked for any company, you probably know what I'm talking about, or if you've used any digital product, or I don't know, a lot of things. It's hard not to run into stuff like this. And like I just said, you don't have a choice. I honestly think that every one of these contracts should be considered to be signed under duress. But I also think that any contract that has objectionable clauses or things that a reasonable person would consider to be objectionable should just be automatically legally voided. Oh, you didn't want them to put spyware on your computer? Oh, you didn't want them to read your email? Oh, you didn't want them to digitally stalk you? You didn't want them to use your image and likeness for whatever? I don't know. Like, what reasonable person would consent to that stuff? That's why they bury it in a 300-page contract. Or like Bricks and Minifigs, their what do you call it? Their franchise contract is really abusive, and really, I don't know. No person who I honestly think you should be really cautious about if you're thinking about getting into any kind of franchise. You should really pump the brakes. And I hope the way this company is behaving, they're far from the first company to egregiously abuse their franchisees. But hopefully the publicity this is generating will make people pump the brakes about, do I want to get into a franchise agreement and pay royalties to this company when they can do something stupid? And then because I'm just basically licensing their name and signage and using their POS system, I'm also like a party to this, and I don't want to be. Yeah, I don't know. I think that I would love to see those. I would love to see a bunch of those franchisees find a legal way to get out of those contracts. But I'm not a lawyer, and I don't know much about franchise agreements or what a lawyer could use. I mean, hopefully there is a term or a condition or even a legally specified obligation that the corporation has to its franchisees, the franchisor has to the franchisees that, can be, used as a reason to break the contract or to declare it void, because the franchisor has broken their side of the deal. Hopefully something like that exists and it can be used to end those franchise agreements, because I really do hate it for locally owned Bricks and Minifigses that are, kind of taking the heat for being affiliated with this company that, is out trying to squash the little guy. And that's just really absurd. These guys have millions of dollars and they wanted to steal some dude's Lego collection. Allegedly. That's just ridiculous. But, rant off, back to contract law. What I think that this whole thing points out or shines a light on is just how egregious and abusive contracts can be. And I think there needs to be some legal reforms. And I think there should be a legal maximum number of pages that a contract can be allowed to be, or should be allowed to be. And whatever that legal maximum number of pages is, it should be like, there should be like the expectation that you should read and understand the contract before you sign it. Whether it's a car lease, or any kind of loan, or the terms of service agreement to sign up for your email, or to activate the phone you just paid hundreds of dollars for, or thousands of dollars, depending on like how not a peasant you are, or to use the built-in computer system in your car that you have to use to turn on the air conditioner, or almost anything nowadays. Those contracts should be very short. There's no reason for them to be hundreds of pages long. Now, I know they aren't all hundreds of pages long, but nearly all of them are long enough that people just scroll to the bottom and click I agree, because they don't want to sit there all day, or hire an attorney to read them and translate them into, vernacular language. I honestly think that if you're going to sign a contract and be expected to be legally bound by it, the language of that contract should be vernacular and not legalese. Now, not all contracts are legalese, and so obscure that, a layperson can't understand them, but a lot of times that's the case. And especially when it's something like financial services that you have to use, or your email, or the phone you just bought. Yeah, that should be like a really short contract. I think it should be 10 pages or less. And it should just be like, you're not going to use this to, do something illegal, and stuff like that. You're not going to use their internet service to break the law, or to do a, something bad. And I don't know, whatever like that. I mean, really, your obligation to an ISP should be to pay them for their service and not expose them to, I don't know, bad stuff, like, I don't know, if you're using the internet to commit some kind of crime, obviously, there's a really good reason to have some clause in a contract that says you can't use this internet service to do illegal stuff. But I don't know. Maybe there's a very slight chance that I'm oversimplifying. Maybe I'm slightly overreacting. But I hope that I'm getting the message across. There are a lot of really egregious, absurdly long contracts. And, and I had to click I agree to something that I don't know if I agreed to here pretty recently while I was applying for a job. And, and it was stupid, it was just long pages and pages and pages, and it was like, I can scroll to the bottom of this and click I agree, or I can not apply for this job, And some of it was like basic stuff, just real no-brainer stuff. And then some of it was, like you waive your right to a trial by jury if you have a grievance, which means you can't sue them, if you have a grievance, or you agree to hold them harmless forever, if they do anything bad to you, stuff like that. Which that should be totally illegal. No, you should never be forced to agree to hold someone harmless if they do bad things to you in exchange for being considered for employment, or, I don't know, renting an apartment or whatever else. That's just stupid, What I want to say is, what I'm trying to say in a lot of words is that contract law, probably not just in America, probably everywhere, is really screwed up, and there needs to be like some legal limitations on what contract law can dictate. And there needs to be like some automatic like switches in the law that just say if the contract says this, or if it's, you know, if there's something that a reasonable person would find objectionable and it's buried deep in a 300-page contract or any number of pages that's long enough that people aren't going to read it, then and yeah, I know I can hear the fake conservatives saying right now, well, you should read it. It's your responsibility to read. Like I said, you know, you have to sign a piece of paper that says you have read and agree to the terms of the employee handbook at probably every company. And that employee handbook, I mean, it can be a cute little thing that you take home and read. And it can be, and I have worked at companies where it is a thick encyclopedia. It's thick with 2 C's. And, you know, and to expect someone to take that home and read over the weekend is stupid. You know, what do you think they're going to do? Like hire a contract lawyer and say, hey, can you help me interpret this, encyclopedia that I just signed a contract that says I agree to? I know they aren't all that bad, but a lot of them are. So what I want to say, and I'm just going to try to say, and I've probably said this a number of times, I'm just going to say it one more time. I think there needs to be some legal restraint on contract law. That takes away the possibility of these really abusive clauses that are buried in contracts, you know, and I think it's hilarious that some Bricks and Minifigs fanboy was on the internet talking about how, oh, you can't just get somebody to sign something and say they're bound by some contract. Oh yeah, you freaking idiot. Have you ever applied for a job before? Apparently not. You know, have you ever bought a cell phone? Have you ever, I don't know, opened up a bank account or something? Or, I don't know, read the terms and conditions on any software you've bought? That you have to agree to their terms of service before you can use the software you already bought and open the package and can't return to the store? Because, I don't know, man. I think that dude was high on his own supply. I heard someone else say that and I thought it was funny. Okay, I have been running my mouth for a little more than 20 minutes. I hope I've gotten the message across. I am going to paste this video, or not paste, post, slightly different spelling. I am going to put this video on the internet, unedited, without background music. Watch me put background music in it. And you guys are required to enjoy it. By clicking on this video, you agree that you will enjoy this video and you will like, share, subscribe, and do all that other stuff. You know what? You also agree by clicking on this video, you are now contractually obligated to do whatever it takes to help me get a pipe organ at St. George, Greek Orthodox Church in Greenville, South Carolina. Thank you very much and have a wonderful weekend. Bye-bye now.